Welcome to the 16th installment of ESPN Honolulu Fan Friday Talk Story. I'm your host, Tiff Wells. With me today is former two-time All-Western Athletic Conference defensive back with his time as a Rainbow Warrior football player. Now he's the analyst for UH Football on Spectrum Sports, Rich Miano. Rich, welcome to Talk Story.
Good morning. It's great to finally get a chance to be on your show. I've been watching it.
Appreciate it, and we appreciate you having the time to join us today. Now, first off, who or what got you into football?
That's an interesting one. My brother, who is actually played high school football back in Brockton, Massachusetts, before we moved to Hawaii, which was 1978 at Kaiser High School. I did not play football. I was a diver, and then Ron Lee and Callie both asked me to come out for the football team. So I played in 1979, and we won the Prep Bowl. In 1980, we went undefeated. I made All-State first team, and UH still didn't want me. So I had to, walk on the University of Hawaii and go through every known obstacle to men, including academics, to get into the University of Hawaii, because at that time, that was my dream.
You mentioned diving. Was it springboard? Was it the platform? Which one was it?
Yeah, so I was Hawaii high school diving. I was third, I think, in the state my junior year and fourth my senior year because I started focusing more on football my senior year. But it was springboard. It was 1 meter springboard diving, 2.5s, reverse 1.5s, 1.5 with a full twist. And I still, if you follow me on social media, I'm kind of old now, but I'll do a backflip off of just about any height.
You still got it. Now, for the game of football, were you always a defensive back?
Yeah, I was I played, when I was a little kid, I played a little tight end, a little running back, but I stopped playing football for a number of years, so I don't have one of those typical football backgrounds. But then when I did play at Kaiser High School, I was a cornerback, and then I played at the University of Hawaii, I was a safety, and when I played in the NFL for 11 years, I was a free safety and strong safety, and of course, special teams is part of that as well.
Born and raised in Massachusetts, describe your hometown.
Brockton, Massachusetts, the home of, for the older people, Rocky Marciano, the undefeated heavyweight champion. For the more younger people that are boxing fans, Marvin Hagler. And then it has actually the largest high school east of the Mississippi River with over 6,000 young people. And the name of the stadium is Rocky Marciano Stadium, and it's a really great football program, similar to St. Louis's here in Hawaii.
We mentioned and we know a lot about signing day for college athletics and primarily football. When you, back in the day when you were in high school, was signing day as big as it is now as it was back then?
Nothing is as big, Tiff, as it is now because of social media and all the different media outlets and the different high school all-star games and all the different accolades that these young people have access to. So back in the day, they had the Star Advertiser All-State team. They had the Star Bulletin All-State team. They had some other media outlets, obviously, but nothing like today. And it makes us jealous, us older people, that we didn't have social media, because it'd be interesting if we did.
And it's probably a better thing because a lot of kids like to enjoy their time on their phones, on their tablets because of social media, right?
No, I agree. And I think also they like to play computer games. And I always tell young people today, when I played high school football, there's Nico Noga, Micah Q, Alvis Satelli, Kaulana Park, John Kamana. And you try to tell me that today's athlete is better than the athlete in 1980. And I'll argue with you only because we didn't have anything else to do. All we did was play sports, lift weights. And there wasn't the access to this social media as well as these video games. So we focused on lifting weights, and we were on the track team, we were on the football team, we played basketball. We basically lived our lives vicariously through sports.
It doesn't matter the sport, but it just seems that not many players from the Northeast or the East Coast make their way out here to the islands. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think most people on the Northeast head to Florida because that's where it's warm and that's kind of where they migrate to. That's where they vacation to. Finally, Hawaiian Air, flies into Boston, flies into New York. And that's been huge for not only the Miano family, but other people on the East Coast. But it's just a long flight, and people have no idea what Polynesia is about. People are not really familiar with, Hawaii in terms of not only a traveling destination, but a destination to live and to work. So, yeah, it is a rare thing. Bob Coolin from the University of Hawaii, he's from my hometown of Brockton. There's a couple other people that you run into here that are, that's 6,000 miles away in a town that's 100,000 in size. So, this is more of a West Coast destination for sure.
When you found out, and we'll get more into this later on, but when you found out that UH was going to go play at UMass a few years ago, and they've also been the Army as well, when you found out UH was going all the way to the East Coast and up into the Northeast, how stoked, how happy were you when you were part of those broadcasts?
Yeah, and even when they go to New York and they play Army and West Point and all of those type of things, anytime Hawaii gets a chance to go to the mainland, but especially to the East Coast, because I think it's important for these young people. And I think Nick Rolovich took those guys through New York City and did some, sites in terms of not only colleges, but historic sites, Ground Zero, some other things. But I think it's huge for our college athlete to not only travel to the West Coast and be part of the Big West or whatever they're part of, but to see as much of the country as possible. And I think the East Coast has a tremendous amount to offer. It's just a long flight, but once you get there, it has wonderful diversity.
We've talked about being born and raised in Massachusetts, but you went to high school out here in Hawaii. What led to that family move coming out here to the islands?
It was probably the greatest decision my dad ever made. The town was becoming really run down. I think the blizzard of '78, the amount of snow accumulation seemed like it was always increasing. The winters were colder, the summers were hotter, and my dad would travel around to different locations. And when he said Hawaii, we had no idea if people lived in grass huts, and it was actually part of the United States. And, you look at it on most maps and it's right off the coast of California. And, it's been a wonderful move for me and my family. And we've obviously loved this place immensely and couldn't be happier with the people and just Hawaii in general.
You walked on to UH after graduating from Kaiser beginning in the 1981 season. Describe how difficult it is to have that grind of being a walk-on, especially in the game of football.
Yeah, and I became the walk-on coordinator, so that I have some empathy and sympathy for these young people. But basically, they did not want me to walk on. They did not have my name at the cafeteria for training camp. They did not have my name to get equipment. They did pretty much everything in their power to keep Rich Miano out of walking on. But I think we have the fabric of this football team is the walk-ons, and I think it continues to this day. And the John Veneris and the Mike Tresslers and the Kaimana Padellos and all these other young people that are a big part of this football team, the Kawali Nishigayas. So I think it is a road less traveled. I think there is a huge amount of adversity. I think there have been some NCAA legislation. Now you can eat with the team. There's some other benefits as well. But it's still a much harder path to travel. But I think the fans of Hawaii in particular, and I'll argue with anybody whether Hawaii or Nebraska had the greatest walk-on program in the history of college football, because when you think of Ashley Lee, believe it or not, he started as walk-on, Travis LeBoy, James Fenderson, Rich Miano, Mike Tressler, John Veneri. There's so many great walk-on players from this football program, and they'll continue because the Polynesian athlete is overlooked based upon he's not sometimes 6'3" or 6'4". Sometimes he didn't run a 4.4, 40-yard dash, whatever else. But he's a football player. He's passionate. He's tough. And I like to follow in the footsteps of the Jesse Sapolus and the Mark Tuines and all these guys that not only played in the National Football League, but played for a decade or so. You know why? Because the passion, the toughness, the coachability, and all those. And that's what a walk-on represents. And I hope Todd Graham really takes pride in the walk-on program because I think it's important.
2 times you led UH in tackles, 83 and 83, and 110 in 1984. Did you always have a knack for getting to the ball carrier?
Yeah, 83 and 84. Yeah, I was known as Triple H, hard-hitting Howley, and it's one of those deals where if you ain't tough, don't play for the University of Hawaii, don't play in the state of Hawaii. The passion of the Polynesian football player and the toughness is something that I think is really important. So, yeah, I loved hitting. I loved the violence of football. I started to realize in the NFL that if I continue to hit like I did in college, I probably wouldn't have played 11 years. And Ronnie Lott once told me, pick and choose your hits because you'll hit yourself right out of the National Football League because it is a violent game and you only have so many hits in your body. But yeah, guys like Nico Vitale, there were so many hard-hitting guys that played for the University of Hawaii, Samari Ulafale. I mean, you watch to this day, Dayton Ferruta. You look at, 53, I'm drawing a blank, Darius Muasau. There's such toughness and such passion for local football players that, even though I wasn't born and raised there, I quickly adopted that whole toughness mentality.
You played all 4 years here at UH for the late, great Dick Tomey. Do you have a favorite story of him? And what did he mean, not just to UH and UH football, but also football around the country for the collegiate game?
Well, I think, he was at that time becoming a legend doing commercials, for insurance companies. He was a leader. He was like one of those military leaders who wasn't very tall, but when he spoke, it was powerful. Then he went on to Arizona and became the winningest coach in Arizona history. And then he became like the president of the National Collegiate Coaches Association. So he's legendary in terms of the coaching circles in the NCAA. And the story I remember most about Dick Tomey is he had an engagement to go to, and we had a night practice. And I remember hitting somebody so hard, and I was still a walk-on. And when he was told that I, really showed up this evening of this practice and knocked somebody just about out, he said, Miano, he's a pussy. I can't believe he hit somebody that hard. And you know what? I found out through another coach. And then later, obviously, he became to love me as a player, and I loved him as a coach and respect him immensely. But I remember him throwing film, in terms of like if somebody was giggling or somebody was laughing or somebody wasn't focusing, he would throw a film from the second floor of the University of Hawaii auditorium and just, get out on the field, everybody 24 110s. It felt like you were playing for one of those old school coaches, the Bill Belichick's, the guys that commanded respect. And it wasn't because of his size. He was kind of like a Lou Holtz. But when he spoke, people listened. And I think he was the guy that really led Hawaii into the Division I, nationally known. Tiff, in 1978, I think, or 79, when Hawaii played USC, I was a senior at Kaiser High School. I went to that game. There were 50,000 people in the stands. And you know what? They were fighting with USC until late in the fourth quarter. And that was when USC had all these All-Americans. And when you go to a game with 50,000 people, and by the way, my senior year still is the attendance record, 49,700. We could play the fire department, and Dick Tomey was ahead of that. And it wasn't exciting offenses like the June Jones days. It was defense, special teams, toughness. But Dick Tomey was a great leader, and I'm fortunate because Wagner was my position coach. I played for June Jones in Atlanta, and I also coached for June Jones, Cal Lee, and Ron Lee. So these things were the confluences in my life to make Rich Miano who he is, and the ability to give back to Hawaii in terms of helping local people.
As you just mentioned, we were going to bring this up before we head to a break, but you talked about your final game being a sellout, playing against Iowa. Yes, it was a loss at Aloha Stadium, but describe what it feels like to walk through that tunnel and you've got 50,000 fans all wearing green and white rooting for your team.
Yeah, and we got to play against Oklahoma. We got to play against Nebraska. We got to play against USC. But that particular game, I still remember because Jonathan Hayes was the tight end and Chuck Long was the quarterback on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And early in that first quarter, Brian Norwood hit Jonathan Hayes so hard that he was like spasming in front of their sidelines. And everybody was like, ooh, and they knew we were there to play. But yeah, when you walk into that stadium, even as a coach under the June Jones days, when there's 50,000 people against Fresno, when Ashley Lee made that touchdown in the back corner of that end zone, the confetti that was flying on the field, the reverberation from the metal palace, you're just vibrating. People have said that have been played in many venues throughout the United States. It was one of the louder stadiums. It was one of the more festive stadiums. It was an atmosphere that's why I didn't have a choice to go to college, but that's why local boys choose to stay home, playing great competition, playing in front of 50,000 people, not having a professional football team here. I think that's what the potential of the state of Hawaii has, and hopefully it'll get back to that someday because it is a special place to play, and hopefully the new stadium will be special as well.
Rich, we do need to take a break, so stay right there. Along with former UH football defensive back Rich Miano, I'm Tiff Wells. You're listening to ESPN Honolulu Fan Friday Talk Story. Welcome back to episode 16 of ESPN Honolulu Fan Friday Talk Story. I'm Tiff Wells. We're here with former Hawaii football defensive back Rich Miano. Now, Rich, we've talked about your days at UH, and of course, we can't go further on without asking your thoughts about Aloha Stadium, especially with the news coming out recently that it doesn't seem as if UH will be playing a game currently at this stadium out in Halava. What is your favorite memory from Aloha Stadium?
My favorite memory as a player was, you mentioned the Iowa game. I could refer back to the Nebraska game, the Oklahoma game. It was just every time I walked out there, Raphael Cherry, Alvis Satelli, Emlyn Kowanawano were the captains, and to represent the state of Hawaii, to represent, everybody talks about wearing Hawaii on the front, your name on the back. The BYU game where they were national champs in 1984, that the Walter Murray drop in the end zone, even though it was a drop, the ability to play with them. At that time, we were 0-2. We ended up being 0-3, where we won the next 7 or 8 games. There were no bowl games in those games for teams that were 8-3. But, just every single thing about it, coming in as a freshman with the Blaine Geissens, the Keone Jardines, the Mike Stennis's, the Gary Allens, the David Talaumus, the Jesse Suppos, the Mark Tuines. I mean, when I think about the names that played and went on to the National Football League or went on to Canadian Football League or went on to just pay it forward here in the state of Hawaii, I see these guys all the time. And the reunions in Las Vegas, the reunions in Hawaii are special because there's nothing like that 4 or 5 years playing college football for your home team in the state of Hawaii, especially when you plan on living here.
The NFL draft, let's go back, 1984, round 6, pick number 166. Do you remember moments right before your name was announced that you were going to be a New York Jet?
Yes, I do, because in the 5th round, I got a call from the Houston Oilers that said that they were going to draft me. So my agent had told me I'd go between the 4th and the 8th round. Back in those days, there were 12 rounds. So, but you never know. And just to get drafted, I was a walk-on. I was a guy that nobody gave a chance to in high school and college, and now playing in the National Football League was a dream. I was with my mom and dad and my sister in her apartment. I remember the night before, because it was I think it was a 2-day draft during that time, not getting obviously drafted in the 1st or 2nd round, whatever it was in that day. But when that call came in from the Oilers, knowing that they're about to pick me, and then the Jets kind of jumped in front of them to get drafted, I wasn't excited about going back to the East Coast because I became such a Hawaii fan and a West Coast person. I was hoping to be more located on the West Coast, the proximity to Hawaii. But, man, the New York Jets going into New York with Mark Gastineau and Joe Klecko and Freeman McNeil and Wesley Walker and some of these great players that you only read about and hear about. It was, I had played in the Hula Bowl in front of the greatest college football players in America here in Hawaii. But now I'm a professional, and what a different lifestyle professional football was.
Did you happen to have a welcome to the NFL moment?
Yeah, those type of things is like the USFL had just folded. There was 135 guys. They were reducing the rosters from, I think, at that time, 53 to 45 or 49 to 45. I knew it was going to be hard to make, whatever else, but it's that whole rookie orientation. I had to, get up, and I didn't even really know alma mater at Hawaii, but I had to do I want to go back to my little grass shack and do a hula dance in front of the whole team. And, that was kind of something that, I'm not a big kind of person in terms of dancing and in terms of that type of thing. But that was a welcome to them. But I think the second game of the season, Tiff, I actually got cut right before the last cut, flew to Hawaii, flew back to New York, flew to Los Angeles. I flew 18,000 miles to make my dream come true. And it was on my birthday. And so I played the Raiders in the Coliseum, and we were 0-1. We won the next 10 games, but on the second game of the season, I had 2 interceptions against Vince Ferragamo in Buffalo. So I'm leading the AFC in interceptions. Here I am, a rookie who just got released, who had flown back from Hawaii and I'm leading the AFC. I'm playing football. We won the next 10 games. We went to the playoffs. We came close to the AFC Championship game, and it was just the start of something great. And New York City was, living in New York and enjoying the limelight and literally the club, the limelight, and Studio 54, and being around celebrities and stuff like that. Being from Hawaii was captivating. It was fun.
You mentioned the interceptions, and I have to ask because we know that you do have a lot of sports memorabilia. Do you have any of the footballs that you intercepted during your time in the NFL?
I have every football, just about. When I was with the Eagles, we had the most dominating defense statistically, maybe in the history of the NFL. Number one against the run, number one against the pass. Well, we would get team defensive balls because, we all played so, well. And I have all those balls too. So yeah, I have a pretty outstanding collection. I actually wish that was the backdrop for this podcast. But yeah, I kept all those. I kept all my helmets. I kept all my jerseys. I have tremendous memorabilia from my son as well in his room. And yeah, I'm very proud of those moments. And, it's good to be humble, but at the same time, I love showing people my memorabilia because, and especially young people, because it's a dream, it's a vision. It's a way for these people to realize that if I did it as a walk-on and with no genetic predisposition, so to speak, I think the capabilities, especially players from the state of Hawaii, sometimes they don't realize that they can play at the next level. So it's been wonderful as a coach, wonderful as a mentor, wonderful with Speed and Quickness and all the other nonprofits and businesses, the Polynesian Bowl, the Hula Bowl, to be able to talk story with young people and give them dreams and hopes.
11 years in the NFL, what are you most proud of?
I think playing 11 years, and I think that is something that, again, the Jesse Sapolos, the Mark Tuine's, the Olin Krutzes, the guys from Hawaii even now, you look at Marcus and Tua and DeForest and Kamu Grugier-Hill, and, if you're from this island and you get to play in this league and hopefully have some success, the ability to pay it forward, the ability to come back and mentor young people and be associated with so many different football organizations and help with the logistics and the inability sometimes for these young people to get opportunity. I call it X's and O's, and X is for exposure and O is for opportunity. And that's for this next generation of people. So, and then, you look at the Leonard Peterses, the Nate Allowers, the Mike LaFaellis, the guys that are giving it back to Hawaii on a regular basis. I look to be their forefather. I look to be the guy that started Speed and Quickness, the guy that started working out with walk-ons, the guy that, is always there for these young people their parents, when they have questions about college football, about the NFL. So it's just so many different things, but the NFL gave me that platform.
How special is the Polynesian Bowl to you?
The Polynesian Bowl is special because it really put Polynesian football on the map. CBS Sports National Broadcast, Adidas, all of the different Hawaii Tourism Authority, all the different sponsors that have stepped up to make this game such a national brand. And what that does, again, it gives exposure and opportunity to the young people of Hawaii. And I think that's important because I remember when I was in the Hula Bowl, stepping on that field with the Heisman Trophy winner, with the Outland Trophy winner, with the Lombardi Trophy winners, with first-round draft picks, I wasn't sure I belonged. And I think some of these 2-star, 3-star guys from Hawaii, when they get on the field with these 5-star guys from the mainland, they're not better. They just have the ability to go to more camps and clinics and get recognized. So I think it's really important for these young people to recognize that. And I think the Polynesian Bowl, just if you go to the PCC and you see the actual showcase of the Polynesian Hall of Fame, I mean, that's $1 million plus investment that's seen by a couple million people a year. I hope to get that into the airport where there's 10 million visitors. I think Polynesian football is similar to the Dominican Republic in baseball, where we're underrepresented in terms of our population, but we're overrepresented in the National Football League, and it will continue because I think there's a place in every college football program and in the National Football League for a Polynesian player because the toughness, the coachability, the passion is there.
You're the executive director of the Hula Bowl, and to bring it back after it was on hiatus for a decade or so, what did that mean to you?
I'm extremely proud. And again, this is the next level. So you have the Polynesian Bowl that gives opportunity for these young people in high school. The Hula Bowl last year, the amount of Polynesian players we had and the amount we'll have this year as well at the highest level, to have NFL scouts, over 50 of them last year from 32 teams, to have coaches from the NFL, to have it on national television, to have it back played here in Hawaii. It's one of my crowning achievements, so to speak, in terms of hopefully this game can go on for a long time. This year's Hula Bowl will have incredible talent, and we're always going to have that Polynesian piece. We're always going to have that Hawaii piece. We're always going to have the cultural, the ethnicity, the authenticity of this game. And to me, my wife, my team, the ownership group on the mainland, to have an office here, to have, the local coaches involved, to have University of Hawaii represented in this game. I think it's real important that we grow this game to be like it used to be, the premier college all-star game in America. We've got a lot of work to do, but we're rising up the charts.
One of the many hats, or I guess we should say one of the many helmets you wear, is you are the analyst you're the UH football analyst on Spectrum Sports. So we have to ask, what is it like to work with the one and only Robert Kekaula?
Robert's an interesting guy. For the Aloha shirts, which are just to some people just I don't know what company is. I'm personally a Manaola guy, but Robert, I don't know who custom makes his Aloha shirts, but they're definitely out there. To his persona in coaches meetings, to some of the things he says during the broadcast, before the broadcast, for some of his opinions. It's great. And then the Rob DeMellos, the David Hallam's, all the guys, RJ Hollis's and the Nate Alauas. I think it's a tremendous broadcast. I think in terms of college football, in terms of high school football, Spectrum does a great job of broadcasting these games, not only to the nation, but here in Hawaii.
Spectrum didn't travel for road games this year. So what was it like for you to call games from the studio?
I never was around when Les Kiter was doing baseball from the studio and recreating like noises when the ball hits the bat and all these other things. But it gave me the opportunity to look at an all 22 monitor, which is how I watch the game anyway. I'm usually standing up, watching the game, anticipating things happening, looking at the secondary shifting, looking at the offensive formation, trying to anticipate what's going to happen before I even call it. That gave me that same opportunity with the all 22 camera and the satellite feed. But then we also have, it was different not being at the game, listening to crowd noise and not actually having a crowd. Some of that stuff wasn't necessarily distracting. It was just different. But I thought we pulled it off, did a great job. And obviously in this COVID world, we had to do that for safety and other reasons. I hope it's not the case in the future, only because I want COVID to disappear and I want to be able to travel, because I think there is something about being at the game, the atmosphere of the game, and having fans in the stands and all these other things. But I enjoy doing the broadcast probably as much as I do anything.
Favorite or best moment from this past 2020 UH football season?
I'm gonna say probably the emergence, and this is not a moment, the emergence of Calvin Turner, in terms of how special he became. And then I go on the other side of the ball, and I said this before the season. I said, Darius Musa will have 100 tackles because he's that type of player. Well, I forgot there was only 8 games, and he had 96 after 8 games, and he finished with 104, I think. But it was that too, me being able to predict something that's going to happen because of his greatness and his ability. Kawali Nishigaya coming into the game at the end of the year, because I said on high school broadcast last year, he's my favorite football player in the state of Hawaii. And it's because he's an underdog. It's because he's short, whatever. Him coming in, catching some passes, scoring a touchdown, and the validity of that, and the whole Chevin Cadero, watching this guy grow before our eyes and knowing that he's going to have 3 more years of greatness. I think this program is heading in a real positive direction. I think Nick Rolovich left this program in good shape. I think Todd Graham brings some other things in terms of defensively and some discipline things I think that are necessary. But I think the program's in good shape. I'm glad to be a part of it. And there was some highs, and there were the lows of the Wyoming game. There were the lows of a couple of other games. I thought this team could be 6-2, 7-1, but I think the future is bright.
You recently went to Florida to go watch Tua play in person. What are your thoughts on their new stadium, and how did you feel Tua has done so far this season?
You know what? The Tonga Vailoas are like family to me. The hospitality, eating dinner with Tua and his family. I mean, 30 minutes after the game, I was going to go for a bike ride around Tua's home and with my daughter and stuff. And I'm glad I didn't, because Tua shows up with the eye black still on his paint, and he brings the food to the family, and then he sits and plays the ukulele, and he would rather be with his family. His culture runs so deep. Their religion, culture, respect for Hawaii, all those other traditions and stuff was just fascinating for me and my family to see. We've seen it before. We went to Alabama with the Tonga Vailoas to sit in the box and watch him play, and then obviously have that personal attachment to him. I think, he hasn't played maybe as well as some people anticipated, because we anticipate such greatness, but I think it's part schematic. I think it's part talent. And there's other things as well that go into, him throwing for 300 yards every week. But as a leader, as a winner, as a guy that everybody loves, as a guy that's so charismatic, I think him and Marcus Mariota, Jesse Sapolo, those type of guys come to mind, Olin Kreutz, in terms of, guys that have not only done it at a high level, but do it the right way. And it's so impressive to be around. The new stadium's great. This 3-4, I think they put $500 to $600 million into the stadium for the Super Bowl last year. There's gondolas. There's a new practice facility. The private boxes are great. The field looks like it's in good shape. I think it was a great destination for Tua. And I think when Hawaiian Air flies into Orlando, the Tonga Vailoas are going to have a lot more visitors.
When we found out that high school football was not happening for this fall, what would be your message to football players on the island? How can they stay in shape to just prepare themselves for the upcoming season?
I was just reading on social media, on Instagram, that they're not going to play like girls basketball. My nieces have won 2 straight state championships at Iolani. They're not going to be able to compete in the third one. And obviously it's a little more myopic when you talk about just football itself, but we had to call off the Polynesian Football Showcase Combine in Las Vegas, which would have gave these guys opportunity. We called off the Polynesian Bowl, which would have gave these guys opportunity. And it's not for the guys that have 10, 20, 30 offers, the blue chippers. It's for these guys that would have gotten more offers if they played this year and had more tape on them. It gone to combines, We're going to try to do something, Tiff, here in Hawaii that's going to subsidize coaches coming in to get these guys on some type of combine, one-on-one drill, something. I'm working on some things that we can give more exposure to these young people. It's all going to be free. It's going to be mostly through corporate subsidies and grants and things like that. But I would say to those guys, don't give up. I would say to those guys, there's Anthony Sagapoa-Lutelli, there's the Zion Ayus that people think are not good enough to have Division I scholarships. They're wrong. These kids don't need another year of tape. These kids are working out every day. These kids have tremendous potential. And I just hope they get opportunity, because as we know, the socioeconomics of football, the one-parent homes are so prevalent that if they don't have football, if they don't have college, the alternative sometimes is not so great. So I think that they got to believe, and we've got to help.
We're entering the final week of the regular season in the NFL. Quickly, who's your NFL MVP?
My NFL MVP is Rodgers. I think Mahomes will come in second. I think Josh Allen will be third. I think Derrick Henry will be fourth. I'm fascinated by the NFL. I follow it on a weekly basis. I watch as many games as I can. My team was the Patriots, but I got a little perplexed when they let Tom Brady go to Tampa. So I got a little love for Tampa Bay, but I follow the Hawaii guys. I follow Marcus. I follow Tua. I follow DeForest. I want those guys to do well. So I'm all over the place.
Who's your matchup for Super Bowl 55?
I would say right now, I kind of like Buffalo as an outside chance. I love the way Josh Allen is playing, Stephon Diggs, the defense. You can't say Kansas City can be down by 21 in the fourth quarter and score so quickly. So they got to be the favorite coming out of the AFC. Out of the NFC, Green Bay, New Orleans. I mean, I would love to see Kansas City against Green Bay. To me, would have the greatest television ratings because the two best quarterbacks in football will be going head to head. What a phenomenal matchup, and the history behind Green Bay, the Kansas City recent winning of the Super Bowl last year. I think that'd be a phenomenal game.
Last one here, Rich. Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Notre Dame in the college football playoff. Did the committee get it right? And in your mind, who wins this year's title?
Yeah, no disrespect to Robbie Tomey and the Notre Dame, but I thought that, you could have said Texas A&M, you could have said maybe another Florida or something like that. But it's such a, I've always said, I've argued with Bobby Curran for years that, there should be no mythical championship. The game should be played on the field. Why didn't they go this year? COVID had a perfect opportunity to go to 8 teams, get more people involved, because it's who's playing the best at the end of the year, obviously. Same thing in the National Football League. So did they get it right? They tried. Did they get it wrong? I couldn't say they did. Who will win it in the end? I'm a Trevor Lawrence guy, but I'm also an Alabama guy, and so that's a great matchup in itself. Ohio State only played 4 or 5 games. Notre Dame, there's something about Ian Book and that offensive line. It's going to be fun to watch. I think whether they got it right or wrong, it's still going to be captivating.
Rich, this has been so much fun. We really appreciate the time you've given us today. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you. Thank Kool-Aid. Thank all the ESPN staff. Appreciate it, Tiff.
For Rich Miano, as well as the rest of us here at ESPN Honolulu, I'm Tiff Wells saying thank you for joining us here on the 16th edition of ESPN Honolulu Fan Friday Talk Story. Until next time, wear that mask, stay safe, and be socially distant.